Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Zuko, and welcome to the final pre-order roundup for 2023. We're going to be tackling December today, and all the new anime figures that you could finally pre-order. Hopefully you guys had a good holiday season, but now it's time to get back to business, and by business I simply just mean talking about figures for like an hour. Thanks for joining me for this, by the way. We have a lot to get into, and there are a bunch of figures that I'm personally interested in this time, but I can't possibly pre-order them all, and we'll get into why in a little bit. But for now, I think we should start, as we typically do, with the pop-up parades, and we're gonna start with a bit of a surprise. Bleach is getting pop-up parades. Now, Good Small Company has dabbled with Bleach in the past, but very, minor attempts. I think they've made, 1 or 2 Nendoroids, but now we're getting pop-up parades for Ichigo and Uryu. These are the only 2 announced right now. I'm sure we'll get more in the future if, say, Hunter x Hunter is anything to go by, because there's already, 9 at this point. And, Bleach is insanely popular right now. Maybe the most popular it's ever been? Don't quote me on that. It just feels that way, because everybody's talking about it. But, yeah, if you're into Bleach, and you don't want to spend, 35,000 yen on what Mega House is doing, and you're not interested in, say, figure arts, because that's what Bandai is doing, you got a cheap budget option now. And I think that's great. Next up is Mao Mao, a fan favorite from the Apothecary Diaries. I have not watched this yet. I will, but I've just been busy gaming. I have not really dabbled in new anime outside of Frieren and Jujutsu Kaisen. That's pretty much all I watched last season. Actually, I lied. I also watched Pluto, if that counts, and that was very good. But yeah, Mao Mao, looking cute, love the freckles, nice pleasant little figure. Honestly curious if she'll ever get something more than this. I feel like they will, but I'm not sure which company would actually attempt that. Honestly, I feel like Good Small Company would be, because I can't see, say, Alter or Amakuni, you know? It's gotta be someone like Good Smile, maybe Furyu. I could see them doing it as well, but then it might not turn out that great. Maybe I'm being a hater. I don't know. But Pop-Up Mao Mao is now available to pre-order. Mima from Perfect Blue. This was an awesome announcement when we first saw it a couple months ago. Definitely caught me off guard. Perfect Blue is, in my opinion, one of the best movies ever, anime or not. I love it. Probably my favorite Satoshi Kon film. That or Tokyo Godfathers. Not sure. Doesn't matter right now. I think she turned out pretty nicely. My only complaint is I feel like they overdid it a little bit when it comes to her lips. I feel like they're a little too bright. I don't remember them, the lipstick being that full, but that's a minor complaint. Otherwise, a pretty nice attempt for a $35 figure. I think it would have been cool to offer a bloodless variant, because sometimes they do that on Good Small Company exclusives. But this scene is iconic. This is, taken right out of the movie pretty much. So I think this makes sense to be the one and only pose and style they went with. Forgive me for not having too much to say about these next couple of pop-up parades, but we're getting Nagisa as well as Karma from the Assassination Classroom. They look good, but just nothing super noteworthy, and I can't recall if they have other figures. I feel like they have Nendoroids and probably prize figures, but I can't recall anything else right now. And then we're also getting Ruri from Martian successor Nadeshiko. I think this character design is super cute. Haven't seen the show yet. I kind of want to. I keep seeing clips of it, and I like her design a lot. She kind of looks like Space Frieren, but that would be disrespectful because she came first, so you gotta respect the classics. I might genuinely watch this show just because I like how she looks, which I don't really think is a weird thing to do. Making these videos, I see so many characters I know nothing about, and when I find one that I like for whatever reason, it makes sense to want to check out the source material. I certainly know these next 2 characters though. Here we have Shiro as well as Shuvi, the concert version's large size. So these are going to cost a little bit more at 8,800 yen, but also are a bit larger to compensate. Maybe say a 1/8 to 1/7 scale. You know, I'm not going to lie, it's just kind of nice to see these 2 in something more formal and wholesome, because most of their figures aren't that. And I do like the designs of the dresses. I think both of these 2 are based off of art from somewhere, but I've never seen the art before. So this is the first time that I'm seeing these outfits, and I like them quite a bit. I think they're fitting, I think they're cute. I really like Shuvi's figure, how magenta it is. They didn't go too hard on the gradation, really just turning into a blue at the tips for her hair. But then Shiro, of course, is still pretty much a rainbow, so the more vibrant of the two. And, you know, it's hard to say if the quality will be, you know, matching the prototype when we get the figure in hand. But right now, there's nothing to really, like, be worried about. And from experience, the larger pop-ups have been better. It's a small sample size for sure, but I feel like they just put in more effort, and I think it's just easier to sculpt, like, finer details and get, like, the coloring right when there's a bigger canvas, so to speak. Street Fighter 6 is getting 2 more pop-up parades this month. We already have Luke and Kimberly, though you can't buy those normally, so it's kind of a pain in the ass, but here we have Chun-Li as well as Juri. Now, interestingly enough, they've actually increased the price on these two to 5,500 yen, and normally we only see that price for the HoloLive girls, and I'm not sure if that's because of their design or the license. But if it is design, then I could understand increasing the price for the Street Fighter characters, because there's a lot to them, right? They're not simple, and I really don't have a problem when I look at these two and I see that price tag. I think it's fine. Now, I've gone on record in the past stating that I think this Juri figure is probably her best one, which is kind of wild considering this is just a pop-up parade, but it's one of the only times I've looked at a figure of her and I was like, oh, that's definitely Juri, because most of them don't look like the game or the art style of the game. And I have a friend who absolutely loves Juri, and he's never bought a figure of her because none of them look like her to him. So I feel his pain. I like that one the most. As for Chun-Li, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of a redesign. I think it's way too hard to beat the classic and the alpha design. However, we're in the age of Street Fighter 6. We're gonna need some Street Fighter 6 figures, and I think they did a good job considering this is a budget line. She looks pretty. Not something that I really care about considering I pre-ordered the Max Factory like 1/6 sculpt, which still is one of the nicest figures I've ever seen. Genuinely mean that. But this is nice for how much it costs. And look at that leg definition, pretty sweet. And then last up for the pop-up parades is actually Ina from HoloLive, so she's gonna cost you 5,500 yen, but I think they did a pretty good job. They went with such an adorable pose this time around, and I gotta say, all like the outfit's intricacies and details seem to be there, so I don't think there's really too much to complain about. I will say, something to complain about, I feel like her face could look a little bit better, you know? I don't fully see Kuroboshi's art style in this pop-up parade. It's darn close, but I feel like it's a little off, but that's just me. The only thing that's really missing here are the tentacles, but then this would have cost like $100. Would that have really been a problem though if they just made a DX version? I don't think so. I think her fans probably would have bought that, and I'm not sure if she's ever going to be getting a scale figure. Alright, so there are a bunch of scale figures on Good Small Company's page. Even before we get to Ami Ami, we got a lot to get through, but before any of that, I want to talk about Alpha, because I find this very interesting, and also I need to own up to the fact that we saw this at One Hobby, and I kind of just like skimmed over it, because I didn't think there was a reason to talk about this figure, as she was part of a Kickstarter called Plantopia, which was part figure, part like animated music video, and that was the only way to buy this figure. But now she's a standard release. And it's not like the project did poorly. They raised over 14 million yen, which was 3 times as much as they were asking for. So I wonder why this is happening now. I mean, it's great if you missed out, but something's telling me that it's actually cheaper to just get the figure here than if you originally backed the project. Because with Kickstarter, there's tiers, right? And as you go down the tiers, they always like add what was previous to it, and then something on top of that. And I know she wasn't the first here, so yeah. But at the very least, you did help fund the music video, so it's not like your money went to waste, but it just depends on what you really cared about, right? So yeah, she's non-scale. She's 280 millimeters, which isn't a small size. She is sitting down, but she's on this like huge rock formation, so it doesn't seem like a super small figure or anything. And she's going to cost 38,000 yen, which is very expensive. Hard to say if that's worth it or not. There's 2 things about it I'm not the biggest fan of. One is this nameplate right here for Plantopia. I feel like that's a little tacky. And the other is her face. I just don't personally think she's that pretty. But considering you're normally supposed to view the figure like this, it's alright, I guess. I don't know, if I'm spending like over $300 for a scale figure, I probably would want to enjoy all of it. I think it's a neat detail that her, pupils are flowers and whatnot. Honestly, most of this design is based around flowers, the hair pieces, the sakura petals for twin tails. There's a bunch of stuff like that throughout the figure, which is cool. It's a really neat concept. It kind of reminds me of like Black Rock Shooter. Not that it looks like a Black Rock Shooter character, but just something like that, where there's a music video that features a bunch of really cool characters holding giant weapons and stuff like that. And this is like a modern take on that, I suppose. I mean, I gotta say, it's a technically very nice looking figure, right? The humongous axe that she's wielding, all weathered and kind of worn due to time, and just like the rocks covered in moss look really nice. The shading and the gradation on her leggings or the boots right there is really catching my eye. And the Sakura Petal Twin Tails is just really visually distinct and very different from, most designs in general. And there's like a nice flow to it with the wind blowing the hair and the cape. Do we want to call it a cape? I'm not sure. But that also kind of looks like flower petals. Again, there's a lot of theming going on here around the flower concept. It's definitely cool. Don't love everything about it. I would probably be a little upset if I backed the project and then I could have gotten it cheaper. But again, just kind of depends on what you were really aiming for with that project. Another one of the standouts for me this month, at least from Good Small Company, was Marcille from Dungeon Meshi. Now, this show literally just aired as I'm filming this, but this went up a couple of weeks ago. And that was kind of my initial complaint, is that I haven't seen this yet. I haven't read the manga, the anime wasn't airing at the time, and you're asking me to put down 28,800 yen. Now, I don't think that's really a bad price. This is a standard release. I've seen it way cheaper elsewhere. It depends on the shipping, of course. However, there's a ton of detail packed into this figure. Yeah, I really liked this prototype when she was unpainted, and now that she is painted, it looks even better. And I've learned a couple of things. One, this pumpkin guy, it's kind of funny. He was a little creepy last time, but I like him. The birds are red. Wasn't expecting that. The mushroom, which I said last time was well endowed, because I didn't know any better. We had this one photo. It's actually legs. I had no idea. And then there's this dude back here. I don't know if he's like a mud golem or a spirit or something, but I love him. Had no idea that was part of this figure. And you really wouldn't unless you turn the figure around, because there's no hint of him anywhere from the front. It's unfortunate that you'll never see it unless you spin the figure around, but I love him. That design is sick to me. And I absolutely love the color palette. It's so bright and vivid, and it's like primary colors, and it's just really pleasant to look at. Not to mention that Marcille is super cute looking too. Right now I'm really impressed, and considering that I'm an American and the yen is still kinda weak compared to the dollar, there are places where I can get this for $165, I think, though I would have to wait a bit longer just because the US stores would have to get their stock first and then ship them to me. So I'll keep you updated on this. I'm not pre-ordering it yet, but I love it. Okay, so next up, let's talk about Proof, who I believe is a relatively new company. Some of their figures have released at this point, though I'm unfamiliar with their quality, but they had 3 figures this month, 2 of them being from My Hero Academia. One for Ochiko and one for Bakugo, right? And they're very similar to the Deku figure from the previous month. And like that Deku figure, they're also very expensive at 29,000 yen and 30,000 yen. And I feel like at this point, that's going to be a bit harder of a sell. There's a lot of figures from the series already. And while I do think these are some of the most dynamic out there, you're also asking a lot from people who aren't super familiar with your company. What they remind me of is a combination of Spirit Tail, how they do their My Hero Academia figures, and Belfine. If you remember their figures from the series, they always have the comic book text, which is super cool. I love that on every figure from this series. I think all of them should have that if they could incorporate it correctly. But yeah, it's the best of both worlds, kinda, except we don't know how the figures are actually going to turn out. So yeah, oh, she comes with the second faceplate. Actually, I guess Deku did as well. Bakugo, oh, I guess he just takes his mask off. Well, there you go. Some more reasons to look into these if you like these characters or this series. They're not bad looking figures. They're just super expensive though, and I think they might be a hard sell. Speaking of hard sells though, here we have the Attack on Titan Eren Yeager Attack Titan version, Judgments. Just kind of lifting a moment from season 4, making it into a figure. The buildings are all broken up. There's spikes sticking out of the ground. It looks awesome. And Eren is very, like, energetic as he's screaming. It's a sick idea for sure. What's not sick is that this is 58,000 yen, and he's 250 millimeters in height. Obviously, this is non-scale, because it's a bunch of buildings and a Titan, but that's kind of small for what this is, in my opinion, for that price. And I gotta say, I think the best parts about this figure are the buildings, not Eren. I think his face looks good, but his body leaves a lot to be desired, like these lines running throughout the like the hips to the crotch. It looks kind of terrible, if you ask me. Like, that's not a good looking butt. But his face looks great, really detailed, very like gritty. I think there's some more close-ups here. Hair looks pretty cool as it's like flowing. But yeah, there's also this one photo cracks me up. Like, this has to be intentional, right? Like, you don't just put the spike at the crotch as like convenient censorship, but if you like kind of hid the bottom, you know, it would kind of just look like what it's hiding anyway. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. I don't have to get into this, but that's great. That's the best part about this this whole release. I just think it's way too expensive. I don't think many people are going to buy this one, but that might mean you can get it for a discount in the future. How much do you care about like bricks and rubble? Because that's really what you're paying for. Rounding out this super expensive section of the video is Chainsaw Man vs. Samurai Sword from S-Fire. Now, S-Fire, when they do stuff like this, these, what do they call it, super situation, where they just literally take something from the show and make it into a figure. You know, when they do this, and it's 2 characters, it's always so expensive, right? And this is going to cost you almost 70,000 yen. S-Fire is also, you know, exclusive. You can't really get discounts on these guys, so yeah. My biggest problem, though, is that it's 260 millimeters in height. That's not that tall, considering that Denji is very high lifted off of the ground. So these two are probably pretty small. There's not an official scale, it's other scale, so keep that in mind. I can't deny that this looks fucking awesome, as they're like lunging towards each other, right? Ready to kill each other pretty much. And the smokes look great, the broken buildings down here. I wonder if these are supposed to be the stools from the ramen shop. Could be like arcade stools as well. I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of curious where they're pulling from, considering how the scene kind of plays out, right? This figure's a little tricky to talk about. Like, I'm not really sure what I would want out of it outside of like a bigger scale or a cheaper price tag. Like, yeah, there's not that much blood on this figure, and I think that's kind of what people want out of Chainsaw Man, but I don't think it's required for every figure. I do think it adds to the grittiness and just like the, I don't know, series' vibe, but this could just be before they really get into the bloodshed, right? The chainsaws always have the blood, right? Like, those are bloody, but where'd that blood come from? You know what I mean? Surely it would stain something else in this scene. But yeah, at a cheaper price, I would probably want this and maybe even pick it up. But honestly speaking, I think there are much cooler moments from Chainsaw Man, much cooler villains. So if I'm gonna go this big on spending money for the series, it wouldn't be with something like this. But that's just me personally. Otherwise, very cool. Fix your prices. Okay, moving on. Next up, we got Ryo from Bocchi the Rock. Gonna cost you 15,800 yen and a 1/7 scale. Good size, good price. I do think she looks very good, but I'm at the point where I really just want to see all 4 of the girls lined up. I'm very surprised they didn't even take a photo next to Hitori. You think they'd want to do that, considering that's the point of this line, but they didn't. So I'm not even sure how they look next to each other. I'm sure they look good, but considering this line is often criticized for looking a little too basic or boring, I think they should do as much as possible to entice potential customers. Also, if I'm being honest, I just don't want to commit to 4 figures right now when I don't even know what 2 of them look like. So, yeah, cute looking figure, paint job looks excellent, very basic. Fat Company finally put up their Shirogane Noelle figure from HoloLive. This one took way too long to finally go up for pre-order. She's a 1/7 scale for almost 30,000 yen. Now, I know some of these HoloLive girls have cost quite a pretty penny, like Max Factory's Lammy, but I feel like that Lammy figure looks a lot better than this Noelle. If you know me, you know the one thing I want to complain about here, it's the hair. Her hair looks terrible. On such a short-haired character too, I feel like there's no excuse to do it this way. Like, when has her hair ever looked this clear, you know? It's very unpleasant to me. Her face is very cute. I like how they painted the armor, that very dark metallic paint job. It looks excellent along with like the gold trim. However, there's just not enough justification here when it comes to like plastic and just like intricacies of the paint job, where I really feel like Fat Company is trying to take advantage of her fan base. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You tell me. I think there's plenty to like about this figure. Her stance is very cute. I love maces, a very cool weapon. Very underrated too. Rarely see anime girls wielding one. And I know for a fact that Fat Company really cared about the chest sculpt on this figure, because that might be the most delicately handled part of this sculpt. So if the hair doesn't bother you, nor does the price tag, I do think the price tag is a little bit too much for this, then she's alright. Fat Company also put up their Clementine figure from Overlord, a 1/7 scale swimsuit figure for 28,000 yen. And if you ask me, that's a worse deal than Noelle. That is very expensive for a swimsuit figure. Now, there's certainly some nice details within the sculpt, right? The definition of her abs, the belly button piercing. They went out of control when it comes to her armpit. I think they overdid it, if you ask me, though that is certainly very intentional. And yeah, you know, her sun hat looks good. The popsicle dripping down onto the chest is obviously a little erotic, right? Even though it kind of looks like blood at the same time. And I do think it's a nice detail that you could remove her hat. I think this is the first time we've seen that with this scale. You get a better look at her fluffy ears, which are cute. But yeah, you know, 28,000 yen. On the subject of swimsuit figures, next up we got Mira from Wonderful Works, a 1/7 scale for 24,000 yen. So roughly 4,000 yen less than Clementine. Now, pretty similar at a glance, bikini figures wearing the sun hat, though Mira's got these honkin' sunglasses, a water bottle belt. But I think the biggest thing is the suitcase behind her. The base also has like a bottle submerged in the sand and like a starfish, though I think Clementine had some similar things to that as well. Now, as you could see, because this is a design by Tori Domino, who I just talked about in the last unboxing I did with MX-chan, he loves curvaceous characters. She is very voluptuous, very busty, and as you go through the gallery, you're gonna get a taste of that. She's also a little toned, I would say not nearly as much as Clementine, but it's still there for sure, especially in the stomach area. And yeah, you know what? She's also apparently got a pistol on the suitcase. I don't know what that's about, but maybe there's more to this character than we know. But she's an OC, so I doubt we'll ever learn anything about that. The only thing I don't really like about this figure are her sandals. These like flowers down here. I feel like they look kind of out of place with the rest of the design, but that's it. That's the only thing I really don't like. And I've seen this figure go for like really low prices. Like I've seen her for about $135. Granted, gotta go to a US store and wait a little bit longer, but when are you gonna find a figure like this for $135? Like, Wonderful Works has a really good track record. I only have one of their figures, that being Mona from Genshin Impact, but they handle a lot of, you know, the Ryza figures, and I think every single one of them have turned out excellent. Also, yeah, her butt's huge. Like that right there, that's pretty crazy. Anyway, yeah, Mira from Wonderful Works gonna come out in December. This might be something I pick up, not sure yet, but hoo boy, it's a nice one. 2 more swimsuit figures actually. Here we have Megumin as well as Yunyun, the light novel cosplay on the beach versions. So these have special sets if you would like a rubber mat They're both like pirate related, though I think Megumin's is a bit more inspired because she is the captain, whereas Yunyun is more like a traditional sailor, crazy underboob, and she's got this bandana that kind of reminds me of Team Aqua, except obviously it's red, but just based on the symbol, that's like the first thing that comes to my mind. But yeah, I really like the outfit that Megumin has. Like, outside of pants, she pretty much has the entire, like, captain getup, the coat and the hat. And I really love the shark inflatable. Looks pretty realistic the way they painted it, super glossy and shiny. Yeah, it's just a very fun and creative take on a swimsuit figure, right? I really do like it. But yeah, when it comes to Yunyun, there's not as much that stands out for me in comparison to Megumin's figure, though I will say I like the skirt. The translucency does look pretty good here, and it's got a floral pattern throughout it, which I think is nice. And I like the inflatable ring. It's got a nice sheen to it, and the leather portion looks really good. I'm wondering if this is like actual string or if it's plastic. It looks like string, so I think you would have to be a little careful with this figure if you picked it up. Okay, so I took a quick break. I was hungry. I'm pretty sure I left off here at Ruby Rose Lucid Dream from Good Small Company for 33,000 yen. Now, pretty sure that's a very similar price point to Fat Company's version. Very different looking figure, that one more traditional, this one has the winter getup, and there's a humongous emphasis on the base as she's emerging on a snowboard through these roses and petals and thorns. It's rather extravagant and looks fantastic. I can't say I feel the same for her outfit. It looks good, I like the colors, but I don't know, it looks a little simple for a figure that's this expensive. I do like the subtle gradations on her like hair tips and the leggings down here. I love that. Just makes the paint job feel a little bit more premium. And you know, overall it's a very fun design, super dynamic because of the base, the pose, and her just expression feels very lively. I think there is a lot to like. I just wish it was a little cheaper. I feel like I've said that a lot today, so I'm gonna try and limit that from now on. Okay, so next up we have a couple of Azur Lane figures, this time made by Good Smile Arts Shanghai, which feels like a rarity. Like, I never see Azur Lane figures on this website, but today we have two. First up is Shanghai. This one is going to cost you 22,000 yen. She's sitting on top of this, like, withered tree, though it's, you know, over a pond with like the water rippling. Looks very nice actually. I really like the colors of the lotus flowers and just like the lantern, the water itself, so this combination of blue and like an off yellow is very pretty to me. Even the way they painted the tree looks pretty good. There's like an attempt to make like the light bounce off of the water back onto the tree, and I think it's pretty effective. So a really nice base. And then it really just comes down to how much you like Shanghai. You know, I think it's gonna be pretty hard to compare like these sculpts to, say, you know, Alter, who really likes making Azur Lane figures, but she's pretty sexy looking, right? These dimples, nice attention to detail right there. I like that. And her face looks very pretty too. So not a bad showing. Now, the next one is Charybdis, the Red Chamber of Healing, which is actually cheaper at 19,800 yen. I guess it makes sense. The colors aren't as nice on this figure. Her legs look so long, very sexy. They're doing the thing where the shawl or the boa, whatever it's supposed to be called, I always forget which is which. It's a fluffy material, right? Which means you could take it off if you don't like it. Almost feels kind of bare and like empty without it, in my opinion. It really does fill a lot of this like bench that she's sitting on. But yeah, if you don't like it, you could just remove it. And then on top of that, you get the fortune element as well as like a red pillow, which does add a nice splash of color to an otherwise pretty like, what's the word I want to use? Not like grounded, but earthy. It's a lot of like darker greens and browns, which doesn't look bad, but maybe you want something more vibrant. And these extra elements, along with her nails, which I just realized, adds a little bit of pop to the palette. This one photo, though, of the bed sheets, it kind of looks dirty. I know it's not supposed to be, but just because of like the shadows and the creases, not super appealing, but don't worry about that. Just put the shawl on, you'll be fine. Yukino Shita Light Novel Volume 6 cover illustration version. This was absolutely a highlight back from One Hobby. I loved it when I first saw it. Still like it now. I know a lot of people were excited about this one. Gonna cost you 19,800 yen. And she's a 1/6 scale. and I think that's a fantastic price for what is, in my opinion, the best looking Yukino figure. Her face is very pretty. I think this has to be the prettiest figure of this character to date so far. And I really like her hair too. I won't say it's like radically different than other scale figures of her, but just like the attention to like her strands, how it kind of looks like she was actually outside, and it might have been a little affected by the wind, but it's not like super messy, a little hard to describe, but it kind of gives it an outside vibe. And I really do like that. I also love her scarf. I feel like if anything isn't as nice as these promotional images are, it's probably going to be the scarf, just because it won't look as like vibrant or like printed as clean, or maybe like the strings down here will look a little messier or something. I'm not really sure. Just some pointless speculation on my behalf, so don't really worry about that. But yeah, all they really did was take a piece of art from the light novel, make it into a figure, and pretty much did it in a one-to-one fashion, and that resulted in just like a phenomenal yet simple piece. This was another one of the highlights from the last One Hobby, Strawberry Shortcake Bustier Girl. This one is another 1/6 scale for 26,000 yen. So a little bit more expensive, however, because how much more involved the base is here, I don't really have a problem with it. You're getting the whole top of a strawberry shortcake, the whipped cream, the strawberries, a whole stool, a little sign down there, and she's even holding on to like an old school telephone. It's a very vintage feeling figure, but it's coming out in 2024, and I think that's fun. Even like the way her hair is styled, and especially her face. If anything, I'm not the biggest fan of her lips, but it totally fits the vibe, totally fits like what they're going for. Just a personal thing, so it's not really a downside or anything, but it's so small, and you can like barely see her teeth, and it kind of bugs me. But man, her eyes are so pretty. That color is amazing. Those are some nice decals. I never realized how nice her eyes looked until just now. But yeah, the rest of the paint job has this like very soft pastel vibe to it. I will say, this stool looks kind of ugly in these last few photos, but it looks pretty good in the main shot. It's like totally a different color. It's like an off green, but then it's more like a light blue here. So I'm wondering what the actual color of it's supposed to be. I'm hoping it's more like this, because it's just a nicer color in my eyes. I think it contrasts more naturally with her outfit. But yeah, that's the one weird standout. Otherwise, she's very pretty. Love her hairstyle. Curls are just underrated in my opinion, and they rarely get used unless it's for like an Ojo-sama character. So I think it's refreshing. I love this design. It is super appealing, and I hope we see more. Okay, so next up is Illustration Revelation, Belle of the Holy Knights. Now, as far as I'm aware, I don't think this has ever had a prototype. They just kind of dropped this on us, and I don't really mind that. I like a surprise every now and then. What I don't love is the fact that this is going to cost 66,000 yen. I never realized this was like a special line that Good Small Company has done in the past, but when I went to this website, this is a really nice image of the figure just because of the higher quality, I realized that I have seen the other figures. The Ghost Bride, which I'm not actually sure if this one ever came out. If it hasn't, it's gotta be very soon. And then the other one was Yueji, which I know a bunch of people picked up. The price tag was much more reasonable. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Belle of the Holy Knights. Now, this one's interesting because the entire thing is whites, which I think for a lot of people is going to turn them away from this figure. And, you know, I don't blame them. Everybody has their preference, right? This really does feel like something you would put up for the holidays. And because of the paint job and just like the fragility of like her hair and her wings, everything looks so thin and just like beautifully sculpted to like the finest degree. I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't PVC. It just says plastic, but like these hair strands are absolutely gorgeous. Like you really get a sense for how much work is being put into the figure when you look at it from the back, just because of like the way it's hanging and flowing and the wings kind of like mixed into all of that hair. It's kind of breathtaking if I'm being honest. Like this is just a marvel, and I mean that sincerely. And while, you know, most of it is really just white, various shades of white, very masterfully done, of course, right? There are plenty of colors in the wreath of the leaves and the ornaments, the bells, and I guess the berries, like the red berries here, the white ones over here. Yeah, I love it. Just not something I'm gonna get. And it has a little cute squirrel friend, so you can't go wrong. But because of the price tag, I'm sure most people watching this video will not be picking this up. But I would love to hear from you if you are. So let me know in the comments. Alright, let's talk about some bunny figures now. We'll get to freeing in a second, but there were 2 extra that we need to go over. Starting off with Luminous Box's Ishimi Yoko Yawa, black bunny version. I'm pretty sure there's a white version of this character. Very simple design, doesn't have fishnets, just the brown leggings, which I like. Nice creasing in the suit itself, and I like her eyes. They're very fierce. I think she's pretty. This one is going to cost you 17,800 yen. I feel like this company has released bunny figures though, and they didn't look that good. But you would have to do some research on that because I'm not exactly sure if that's true. Next up is Karin from Blue Archive. Now this one is from Good Smile Arts Shanghai. This is not the Max Factory version, which a lot of us are waiting on, unfortunately. However, this is the one that goes with the Asuna figure, if I could find it. And they pair up really naturally because I think they have the exact same base. So you'll get this base no matter what, but because they thought of this beforehand, you don't need to use both, and you could just put Asuna on top or Karin on the side, depending on which one you get first. But yeah, it's lovely when you can do stuff like that. And I think it's a really, really pretty setup. Unfortunately, I've already bought into Max Factories with their Asuna, and I feel like it would be weird to combine the two, so I'm personally just gonna wait. But I wouldn't blame you if you want this one instead. She's a 1/7 scale for 22,000 yen, so a really nice price actually. And as you can see from the fishnets, they are huge as far as like the holes go. And of course, the photographer wants you to know that she is very sexy, so you're getting some nice shots of her butt and whatnot. So yeah, be on the lookout for this one in December of 2024 if it comes out on time. There was one other thing that I thought was kind of weird. You could take out the cards from her hand, but then she's just holding her hand out like this. So I don't know why you would do that unless they give you a separate hand. I would say leave the cards in her hand unless it's like blocking her face on the final product, but that would suck if that were the case. So let's hope that doesn't happen. As for freeing, they had 6 figures this month, starting off with Purple Heart as well as Black Heart, both from Hyperdimension Neptunia, both the bare leg bunny version, so technically re-releases, and they're both going to cost you 30,000 yen, which is a fair price, if you ask me. Next up, we had Snow Miku, who is another re-release. This one is also going to cost you 30,000 yen. And considering the, like, size of her hair, I feel like that's a pretty good deal. I think they've re-released most, if not all, of their Miku figures at this point, though I can only recall 3, so maybe I'm wrong on that, but this one's very nice looking, so if you want to pick her up, now's a good opportunity. When it comes to the new figures from freeing, first up we had this Hajime girl. I believe she is an OC, and she's going to cost you 33,000 yen. Now, I like this one. There's something about the hips that look more erotic than usual, and I can't quite place my finger on it. I'm not sure if they're just wider or if the suit is a little thinner as it goes down, but there's some magic afoot here. It might also be the fact that the stockings kind of stop at the thighs there. But yeah, a rather appealing one. I like the silver bunny suit as well. The light blue jacket, maybe like a teal. It's a really nice color palette overall, along with her blonde hair. Nothing super innovative, nothing super crazy in terms of the design, but I do feel like they have a nice design here, and the price is pretty good too. Next up, we got Anise from Nikkei. Now, the last time I saw her, I felt like she looked a little stocky, like a little too short, and a friend told me that she is kind of just short. However, I feel like looking at these photos, things look a little bit more natural to me now, so I'm glad that issue is gone from my head. She's going to cost you 44,000 yen, which obviously is pretty damn expensive, right? However, because of like all the military gear that she's wearing, the equipment, and even the rocket launcher on her back, which is massive, I did not realize she carries this around the last time I saw her. I feel like the price is pretty justified this time around. At the very least, you can make an argument for it, but I do think this one turned out pretty good. Her face is very pretty. She's certainly showing off a lot, and I think that's what the Nikkei fans want. And her hair looks really good. The colors in general are very nice on this one. So I think out of everything I've seen this month from Freeing, this is probably the best one. Though the last figure was pretty good too, for totally different reasons. But they did have one more figure to talk about this month, and it was another surprise. I don't think they ever mentioned this anywhere else, just kind of put it up for pre-order. And that was Rika from Higurashi. Now, I think it was inevitable that we would get more Higurashi bunny girls, but wasn't expecting Rika to be presented this way, right? Instead of giving us the, cutesy dress that they sometimes do, it's just the bunny girl suit, with the only exception really being the socks and the shoes. Got the cute pom-poms down here, I guess. But besides that, very traditional. And they gave her a knife. Now, she's pretty short, but she's also going to cost you 33,000 yen. Now, that definitely beats 39,000 yen from back in the day. But I do feel like with a character like this, you probably should lower it to, say, 30,000. But that's just me. That's how I personally feel. Maybe you disagree, but I feel it makes sense. A shorter character means less plastic used, which means it should save them money to make it. Anyway, let's move on to Ami Ami now. Actually, you know what? I lied. I want to talk about this figure next, and it's not on Ami Ami, so give me like 5 minutes because I'm probably going to rant a little bit here because this means a lot to me. Feel free to skip it if you don't care. I'll put chapters in the video for you. But yeah, this is Artorias from Dark Souls, made by Gecko. Easily one of my most anticipated releases ever since I saw him painted. It took so long to get this figure, and as you could see down here, he is going to cost you 98,000 yen. Made from PVC and is only a 1/6 scale. I feel like Gecko might have lost the plot. I think they're out of their minds. It's insane. It's bonkers. I think this is easily the nicest looking Artorias figure on the market right now. But at that price, he should really be either made out of like polystone, or he should be a 1/4 scale. But he's not. He's not even like that big. He's 380 millimeters, but they've confirmed it that that's the heights up to the blade's like tip. You know what? The first day I saw this, I woke up, just saw it on Twitter, went back to bed. I think I even tweeted that because I was just bummed the hell out. Like, man, how am I supposed to like afford this shit? You know what I mean? And you know what? As an American, it is a little bit easier for me because the yen is much weaker than the dollar right now, and it is recovering. But when they put this guy up, it's closer to say 760, which is still a hell of a lot of money. But if you watched one of my Q&As, I did almost spend 750 on another Gecko figure that I missed out on. And because Gecko figures are so elusive, right? If you don't buy them, they almost always skyrocket in price outside of the Black Knight from Dark Souls, just because I think they made too many, and that's just an enemy from the game. People don't have like that connection to him. But there's a good chance that this guy is gonna like triple on the aftermarket. But there's also some things going against that, because First 4 Figures already made an Artorias figure, so there's not as much of a need for this specific release since one already exists, though that is also very hard to find because that's just how Dark Souls works. But yeah, it's not like a Soul of Cinder, like the final boss from Dark Souls 3, where nobody ever made another figure of him, so he's like $2,000. It's hard to say if that'll happen to Artorias. But there have been some decent prices for this guy if you're from the US like me. One of the best deals I've seen was on Kappa Hobby. I think there's another site that also has a price similar to this, but he was $683. Free shipping too. It's like, man, that's pretty convincing, right? Like, that feels like something I should jump on. But, you know, that's still $683, almost 700 bucks for a 1/6 scale. However, on like New Year's, it was either New Year's Day or the day after that, Hobby Genki, of all stores, which had a good price for him, he was like $610, though before shipping, of course, we're doing a like site-wide 15% off. And when you take 15% off of $600, that's quite a lot of savings. So when I went to the cart, I put in the code. Essentially, it just slashed the shipping price because EMS was like 96 bucks. Now that's just speculation on their behalf, of course. But Sekiro was also like over 10,000 yen easily. And this guy's probably a little bit bigger. It's hard to say considering the base is much smaller. But yeah, it was essentially $614. And I did buy it, and I already paid it off because they wouldn't let you, you know, pay later because it's so much money. So that's really like set my year. This and Guts / Griffith are so fucking expensive. Yeah, this was very stressful. I don't like spending that much money on anything. At least something like this where I clearly don't need it, but I just want it, right? But yeah, I would rather buy this, something that means so much to me, one of my favorite games and series and developers of all time. You know, I might be stupid for that, but sometimes we're stupid. I'll try and like fix the stupidity though, by gathering some funds from other things in my room that I don't really need anymore. So that's the plan. I don't know, I feel like I spent so much time talking about that I don't really feel like I need to talk about the figure's quality. We've done that before, and I would like to move on in the video. But just know, he's fucking crusty and rusty and painted to perfection. It's such a rich color palette despite also looking dirty and messed up and weathered. It's insane how like nicely like sculpted and painted this guy is. Even like the base itself, which I think is the what's it called? Like the Ulasil Coliseum, is that what it is? And all like the sludge under him, the abyss sludge. It's insane. This clearly is the ultimate Artorias figure. Actually, that reminds me. This was their justification for how much this guy costs, right? Because they actually showed you how they're assembling and painting this guy. He is 75 individually painted parts. And they want you to know that because, like, if you don't see the process, you can't possibly comprehend how this could be almost 100,000 yen. So, yeah, this is their efforts to make the nicest paint job possible, the nicest sculpt possible, minimize any flaws, some quality control issues. They want to make this guy perfect, and I really do respect that. Though I do feel like this release is going to bite them in the ass a little bit, because I can't imagine that many people buying this. It's just way too expensive. But we've talked about this long enough. You could find this page on the MFC page of Artorias if you're interested in it. And yeah, let's move on. Okay, so finally on AmiAmi, I have like 40 plus tabs right now. Very unorganized. I can't even read them because there's so many up there. But I found Sakuya, who is getting a re-release from Q's Q. This figure is immaculate, all right? I've talked about it in the past. I would love to talk about it again in the future. Maybe I will now that I have a better camera. But 15,700 for this is a steal. This actually went up in price quite a bit. Highest recommendation. I love this line of figures, and I'm actually going to be talking about it maybe next month. However, outside of this re-release, they also put up their Flandre from the Toho Vania line. Now, 21,000 is actually cheaper than I was expecting, considering Reimu was, what was it, 24,000 yen? So it's nice to see them lowering the price a little bit. I do feel like there is technically a little less detail here. However, her wings look excellent, and this is the only figure in this line so far that has something going on with the base, even if it's just like an effect swirl. It also just looks really nice too for effect pieces. Normally they're just clear acrylic or something like that, but they're painted and they're like a little glossy. The inside is a different color. It's rather nice for the price that they're asking for. Her spear this time is a bit more weathered, a bit like metallic and rusty, which is a different approach than Alter took with their Flandre, and her wings have this decrepit look, which I like a lot. This approach is much more interesting to me, rather than the older designs of Flandre, where it's kind of just like, I don't know, black beams of steel. I'm not even sure what her wings used to be made of, but I like this way better. It just fits the character to a T. I like it a lot. The crystals are interesting this time too. They have a design to them. But yeah, guys, like all around, this figure is just exceptionally good. I would say like outstanding across the board. I love how insane her face looks, but also the way they painted her dress is just phenomenal. Like, the edges are really dirty. There's tons of gradation into darker tones. The creases look really nice and natural, but it's also, like, very chaotic at the same time. I can't think of a single thing that's bad about this figure. It's gonna be a little small. That's it. But it fits in line with, like, every other Toho figure, so why would I complain about that? This is definitely one of my most anticipated figures that I have pre-ordered. Nacho Neko. Is that how you say that? Nacho Neko? I can't be right. 19,800 yen for this cute cat girl wearing an oversized, I guess, dress. Doesn't look like a sweater to me, but the sleeves certainly don't fit her. They got paw pads on them. Very pleasant color palette. I like her slippers too and the striped socks. It's a cute design. I think you get the little plushy cat down here too, just kind of emoting. Pretty sure this is a VTuber, yeah, so that's probably why I'm not super familiar with her. Next up, we had the Goddess of Victory Nikkei Guillotine, cool name, 26,400 yen. Pretty damn expensive. She seems to be on the shorter side. I guess it depends on how much effort they're putting into the gun. It does look like it has some weathering on it from what I saw earlier. You can kind of see it. These photos aren't the best. Also seems like you need a stand for it, or it's a suggestion so she doesn't lean over time. That's not really that great considering how simple this figure looks. I do think she looks cool. I just like her design in general. Her hair looks great, and the weapon being worn down a little bit does add some value for me at the very least. So yeah, she looks cool, just a little bit too much money in my opinion. Next up, we got Elena Summer One Piece Dress version, 19,440 yen. Pretty good price, though I don't really like this that much. The only exception really is the witch coat, kind of like flowing in the breeze. The dress looks okay, but what really hurts this figure for me is really just her face. It looks so bland and cheap, and I feel like this would be very acceptable for like a pop-up parade, a prize figure. I feel like this doesn't look like a premium scale figure's face. A very pretty concept, but held back a little bit, and apparently you could take off the coat if you want to, but that's the best part of the figure in my opinion, so I wouldn't do that. Let's see, Mia Luna Tear Moon 1/7 scale, 18,230 yen. Great price, cute looking character, and I like the way they painted this one. There's a lot of like soft white airbrushing, I suppose, along the frills on the blue portion of the dress. Her hair doesn't look cheap either. I would say this is a pretty good showing from the company. I just have no idea who this is. But for the price, I feel like this is pretty good, you know? A very healthy amount of wrinkles and creases throughout her dress too. It just seems like a good deal to me. Very pleasant all around. Chain Soldier Kyoka Uzen 1/7 scale for 30,800 yen. A hefty price tag, however, there's a whole ass monster down there, so I think it's justified. The only thing that kinda sucks is the chain attached to his neck has to be supported by not only one support rod, but there's actually a second one down here. Which, I mean, I get it, it's gonna droop over time, but two? You really need two for something that light? I don't think it ruins the figure, just hinders it a little bit. She looks very cool though. I think this is an awesome setup for a figure. She looks badass unsheathing the sword. The monster's like definition of his muscles just make him look super strong and whatnot. Yeah, I like this a lot actually. Furyu did a pretty good job outside of the chain. And then last up from Furyu is actually Mikey from Tokyo Revengers, 23,300 yen. For a 1/7 scale is really not that bad if you ask me, considering he's sitting on like 4 or 5 slabs of concrete. And then there's also just like metal sheets and pipes kind of slammed into there for whatever reason. It does look kind of cool, the way he's like wearing his jacket, flowing off to the side, looking like a bad boy, of course, as he typically does. Yeah, I think his face looks a little average if you ask me, but most of it does look pretty good. And you know what, while we're at it, let's just talk about the rest of the male figures this month. I think there's only like 4 more, so not too much. But Kotobukiya did put up Toji from Jujutsu Kaisen for 15,000 yen, a great price, pretty much in line with everybody else from this series, though Toji does come with the worm baby, who is probably my favorite part. I like how they painted that guy. He looks great. I have to assume he comes with a bonus faceplate, though I don't remember it off the top of my head, so I'll put it on screen now for you guys, and apparently you could take the worm baby off. Though why would you ever do that? Also from JJK, Mappa and Design Coco teamed up to put out this Gojo figure, a 1/7 scale for 52,800 yen. Now, this is based off of a 1-to-1 statue somewhere in Japan. I don't remember where it's displayed, but it's out there. And this is very expensive. It's a skeleton orgy. I don't know what the concept is behind this one outside of skeleton orgy. Like if this happens in the manga or something. I don't know. You could spoil me if you want. I feel like Twitter just spoils this entire series for me, and I don't care at this point. The weird thing about this, though, is that it's very similar to another figure of Gojo that's already out right now. I think Furyu made it, but it's like the exact same pose, except this time there's like 7 skeletons. And they're really nice looking skeletons, and I do think Gojo looks a little bit better here than on that other figure, and the paint job just looks better too, especially this like gooey throne that he's sitting on. But is it really 52,000 yen worth it? I don't know. I can't really make that decision for you. I just spent $600 on something most of you wouldn't buy, so don't worry about my opinion. Okay, so here's a good example as to why Mega House kind of sucks sometimes. This is a Kakashi re-release, the Ninja War version for the 15th anniversary, 24,200 yen. Pretty expensive. Originally, it was 1280. Like, I don't even need to say anything at this point. He looks cool. Kakashi is awesome, but literally twice the price. So it's just like, nah. Like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'd rather just buy a newer figure of him, because I'm sure the quality would be better anyway. But he's got the Zabuza sword. Everybody loves that arc. It's like such a good way to introduce your manga or your anime. Awesome character. So, yeah. Hate the price. Cool looking figure. Shitty situation. I just realized I forgot to move my webcam. I gotta do this manually every time now, so forgive me for that. It's better over here for the Ami Ami section. But either way, last up for the guys is the Ensemble Stars Rei Sakuma Entrancing Myth version. From Rebos, a 1/7 scale for 23,000 yen. I gotta say, his wings look excellent. A golden layer underneath, and then a really nicely white shaded layer on top. Easily my favorite part about the design, and truthfully, there's not too much here that's really for me, right? But I'm sure those waist cutouts, the stomach cutout of his clothing, that's gotta make some people go crazy. And I think that's great. This guy looks very pretty. And he's got a great price too, considering the detail of the wings, the gold running throughout the rest of the design, his weird-ass tail, and his ears that, to me, don't really match. Like, this is a demonic-looking tail, but his ears look more like an animal. Very strange to me. Don't really get it. But really well done for a very good price. Okay, next up is Girls Frontline G11 Mind Eraser from HobbyMax for 27,000 yen. Now, we saw a couple of figures in this line previously, a month or two ago, and I complained about the price tag there because, of course I did. When you compare these figures to the Eva fashion line that the same company makes for roughly 20,000 yen, it just seems like something is off. But what I failed to remember or mention is that because HobbyMax is based in China, I believe, it's actually cheaper to buy these figures from China, and this is a situation where like the import fees for Japan is just hiking up the price for us. So, if you like this, you could probably get it for closer to around 20-ish thousand yen. And this is my favorite one of the 5 girls or 6 girls that are being made, just because she's so sleepy and out of it. She's just playing her PSP, I guess. Kind of looks like a Game Boy and a PSP. But I'll assume it's a PSP. I like the headgear, the neck pillow. It's a very fun setup. It's very cute. Very dark palette as well, which is kind of interesting. Not the most, like, exciting figure, but I dig the design. I like it a lot. Okay, next we got Grand Blue Fantasy Vera Oathsworn Evening Gown version from Apex for 23,000 yen. Now, it's pretty rare to get Grand Blue Fantasy figures. I feel like that's weird. How do we not get more of them? We've seen a couple trickle lately, but not as much as I would expect. Either way, this is Vera. She looks very different from what I'm used to. My very minimal experience with the Grand Blue series is the fighting game that recently came out, though that is an update to the older version, but I never played that one. Anyway, a friend picked Vera against me. He's in Masters. I have like 5 hours in the game. And he made me hate this character because she was just non-stop destroying me. Couldn't press a button. Very fun, but it was a learning experience. Anyway, yeah, she just doesn't look like how I know her, so it's a little weird to see this figure, but the dress is gorgeous. It certainly highlights the shape of her body, especially from the back. I think the staircase is a nice touch, though it kind of looks a little cheap in some areas. Like, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to imitate marble, but like, I can't really see that when it comes to the railing. I can kind of get a glimpse of it in the staircase itself down here, but I don't know, I feel like they could have maybe tried to highlight that feature a little bit more. Not the biggest deal considering it's just the base, and the dress really is the highlight. Her hair looks very good too, but yeah, kind of like Vera wearing the armor more than this, so not really my favorite figure of her, but it's nice to get one anyway, and I'm sure Apex will do a very good job. So if you want something more gorgeous and elegant, you can pick up this figure. Alright, let's talk about Alter next. I believe they had 5 figures this time, which is quite a lot for 1 month for them. And the first 2 are re-releases, quite in-demand re-releases. This is probably the bigger of the 2. Narberyl is finally getting a reprint. Now, this figure was like twice or even 3 times as expensive on the aftermarket, so it's nice that they finally did this. Honestly, they make so many Overlord figures that I'm surprised that this didn't happen sooner, but I'm also kind of surprised that people were like so eager to pick up the figure for those aftermarket prices, just because it felt like a situation where it was going to happen at some point. But I understand if you really like a character, you just want the figure at all costs. But now, if you missed out and you didn't succumb to those aftermarket fees, you can get her for only 21,000 yen, which is probably a steal. The other figure that saw a re-release from Alter was none other than Yami in her nurse outfit. And it always kind of bugged me that this was technically her best figure from a quality standpoint, just because Alter made it. But they had to go with like the nurse cosplay instead of the main design. The price is very good though, 18,600 here, but because AmiAmi makes you pay the tax for these Alter figures, you can find her even cheaper on, say, Hobby Link Japan, which I have an affiliate link down below if you want to help support the channel. But you don't gotta do that, just a suggestion if you want figures like this. But anyway, Yami, very cute looking figure, love the colors of it. Also kind of suggestive at the same time because she's straddling the syringe, there's a liquid coming out of it, kind of in the shape of a heart though. Very cute. Best detail about this figure is being able to see her thigh press against the syringe. That's just ace, if you ask me. Next up, we got the Idolmaster Shiny Colors Fuyuko Mayuzumi off the record version, a 1/8 scale for 23,800 yen. Kind of surprised they're going 1/8 scale here. If I had to guess, it's because of the love seat and they don't want to make the furniture too big. But other than that, it's a very cute looking figure. I love the smug aura this one puts off because of her expression and her pose. It's lovely, and the fashion, it's a little different, but I think it's very cute. The spotted leggings, the leopard print skirt, and the frilly top. Not to mention the cutesy cat hat up here. Her hair looks great. Long nails, earrings are very pretty. You know, just her cutesy idol fashion is on point here. The only thing I don't like is this crinkly ass pillow. It almost looks like they put it in an airtight bag that like sucked the air out of it for whatever reason. All the other pillows are very cutesy and pretty and pastel in color. Got the big ribbon back here, a light blue one over here. I think there's one behind her in the shape of a heart. Like, it wouldn't stop me from buying this. What's stopping me is that it's an Idolmaster figure and it's just not worth pre-ordering these days. But she's great. And who knows, if it drops on the aftermarket, maybe I'll get it. I don't know. It depends how I'm feeling, if I can even recover from all the money I've been spending lately. But she's excellent. Alright, next up we got the Albedo Pure White Santa version. Another 1/8 scale for 34,200 yen. Very expensive, and unfortunately the gift you're getting for Christmas is 5 support rods keeping this figure up, which is the most I've seen in quite a bit. But regardless, we got Christmas Albedo here, looking super festive. They've designed her wings to look like Christmas trees. I think that is a fantastic idea, very fun. You got the ribbons, the candy canes, the stars. You could tell even just based off of the wings that this figure is painted exceptionally well. I really like the color palette of it. Not too much green for a Christmas figure, but a lighter blue, a bunch of red, and whites, of course. I think this is a pretty good take on the sexy Santa design, right? Like, they're not overdoing it, but she's still very attractive, and they're having, like I said earlier, fun with the concept. Her wrists are bells with, like, mistletoes attached to them. That's just great. And the design of her hats, that might be Ein's on there. I'm not sure since I haven't seen too much Overlord but either way, it's a cool skull design on a Santa hat. And I love that. Even the horns, I don't know if there's a better picture of it, but they have like ribbons on them, like wrapping paper. So yeah, Alter definitely had fun designing this one. I think they did a great job with it, but my god, does she really need this many support rods? They have to figure something out. Like, at this point, make the figure have an extravagant base so that you could attach the wings and maybe even the bag to like the base itself, like if it was in a snowy environment or something, or maybe, I don't know, presents around her to hide the fact. Because right now it really hurts the appeal of this figure. But otherwise she's excellent because it's Alter, but a bit of a misstep if you ask me. And then last up from Alter is actually Fischl from Genshin Impact. This figure took years to come out. I think most people thought it was canceled, myself included. At one point this was on my wish list, but unfortunately not anymore. I have too much ordered and too many things to look forward to, so I won't be joining you guys on this one. But I think she turned out great. A little bit more expensive than I was expecting, but I will admit that was probably some wishful thinking because she has a bunch of like electricity sparks around her and this really sick looking crow behind her. This figure also has optional parts if I can find the right photos of them, where you get like a separate arm, face, and the rose in her hand, which was a bit unexpected. I don't think they needed to do that, but I do like both versions of this figure. One's just cuter and one's just more serious, and I like that. I like that you could choose which version of the character you like more. But yeah, one thing I want to talk about really quickly is how we've seen Alter kind of evolve over time. If you were collecting figures from Alter from like years ago, they would never really do anything like this, like use effect pieces. Like every figure they made were kind of just like the character standing there in a very static fashion, not to make a pun because of the electricity, but it's true. They kind of were just like, here's the character, they're very pretty, that's it. So to get something a bit more exciting, a bit more dynamic, is just exciting to see. And we've seen it before. This isn't the first time they've done it. There's that one Arknight's girl that you need a screwdriver to put together. I think her name is like Schwarz or something like that. I didn't buy that. Too expensive. One more thing though that I gotta mention that I've seen people complain about, and this is probably true, is that her thighs look kind of thick. Thicker than they probably should be. But as somebody who doesn't play Genshin Impact, I just look at this and I'm like, hell yeah. But I don't know, maybe they're right, you know? Because I've seen a lot of Genshin girls, usually they're not like this. So that could be a reason to not like this figure, and I totally understand that. But ignorance is bliss, you know? Here is Fischl, finally available to pre-order. Looks amazing, the Raven Bird, Fischl herself, whatever configuration you decide to go with, I'm sure it's going to turn out fantastically no matter how you decide to display her. Alright, next up we got from Amakuni, Suki Uzaki, Little Devil version, a 1/6 scale for 24,000 yen. Leaves very little to the imagination, but not a cast-off figure. Feel like that price tag is a little much considering what she's wearing and how revealing this figure is. The boots look great. Love boots like that. But, I mean, there's really not much to this figure. She does have two expressions, so you could choose which one you like more, which is nice. You know, typically you see her with her eyes closed, but you have more than one option with this figure, and that's always good. But yeah, just a sexy MILF figure for you if you're interested. It blows my mind that this character still gets figures to this day, but Sora Kasugano Yukata version from Alpha Max, 1/7 scale for 23,400 yen. Very self-explanatory. She looks good. I like the design of the Yukata. The best element of this figure is probably the bunny, plushie, or beanbag. I'm not exactly sure which it is, but she leans against it on the base, and I think that's fun. So, this is a design of Bremerton from Azur Lane that is based off of a Dakimakura. It looks exactly like that pillow cover. So, I think for that reason, they absolutely nailed it. Now, Alpha Max, I'm not sure if they've made Azur Lane figures before, but I know for a fact, or well, I'm pretty sure this is a fact, that this is their first 1/4 scale figure. So it's kind of a big deal for that reason. Now, she's a little expensive, 36,000 yen, but I mean that's kind of in line with what other companies are pricing their 1/4 scales at. So I'm not super concerned about that, just worried about the shipping. But my god, is this a sexy looking figure? It's actually not a cast off. I've looked through all the photos many times, and I haven't seen anything like that. It's just super suggestive, so keep that in mind. Even though Alpha Max is known for doing, cast off figures, this doesn't seem to have any of that. The one downside is her hair kind of looks a little meh, in my opinion. I don't think it's a deal breaker. It looks fine for the most part. I just think it could look better. If you don't know what she's wearing, it's basically like a cowboy outfit and a bikini at the same time, but she took off the bikini and you could see it kind of like laying down on the ground right there. I don't play the game. I don't want to get into it. There are so many nice figures that I've avoided just because it's a crazy rabbit hole to fall down, but kind of a sucker for this character. Alter's version of Bremerton is coming out like next month. I think it's called the Kung Fu Cruiser version. I'm definitely going to get that if it drops in price, but we'll see. Most of them do. With my luck, it won't, but I don't know. Couldn't really tell you which one I like more. I think they're both pretty outrageous for different reasons, but I will say, I think it's very cute how she's like hanging her shoe off of her foot. I just like this pose a lot. So yeah, not pre-ordering it right now. Don't be surprised if I own it one day. But right now there's just way too many figures on the market, and because she's a 1/4 scale, that's a lot of real estate and a lot of money. So she's kind of like lower priority, even though I would put her pretty high on like the appeal of the figure for me. And that kind of sucks. But what can you do? Here we have a Love Live figure of Ayumu Uehara from Plum, 19,600 yen. Very cute, very pink. Yeah, they've made a couple of figures from Love Live so far, and I think they've turned out okay. But I just feel like they're not extravagant enough at this point to really pull people in outside of like the diehard fans of the characters that they're making. Here we have another Idolmaster Shiny Colors figure of Koito Fukumaru, a 1/7 scale from Wave for about 21,000 yen. Little expensive because she seems like she's on the smaller side and she's sitting down. At least that means the shipping will be very cheap. Her outfit, very like angelic, very cutesy as a result. I like the flowers in her hair, very pretty. And I think she has fangs in one of these photos, which is very cute to me. I like that. Adorable, honestly. Love the colors of her eyes, especially in contrast with the rest of the palette. And I like her hair too. The twist of the pigtails, the color of them. Very cute looking figure. I like it. Maybe slightly expensive, but really not that bad. From Golden Head is a figure of Reina. I think that's an OC, a 1/7 scale for 25,700 yen. Pretty expensive, though you can take off the sundress and turn this into a bikini figure. And while the base looks a little cheap to me, at least they're trying. I would say I'm not super impressed with this one, but I like that this is kind of two figures in one. Sorta. Here we have a B-Style from Azur Lane, Manchester Midnight Devil in White version from Freeing. I think Union Creative might be involved with this as well, as they typically are with Azur Lane. These photos are really not that flattering. I feel like this figure just looks unimpressive as a result. I don't know, this looks like a very dull figure even for like Freeing standards, which is kind of a shame because I like this design, having this like nurse succubus devil costume idea going on, but it feels a little wasted. I don't think they're doing this justice, and that's kind of a bummer. Also from Union Creative is the To Love Ru Darkness Momo swimsuit version for 38,000 yen. Ridiculous price tag. However, I do feel like these To Love Ru 1/4 scales in the swimsuits have looked pretty good, and I think Momo does stay true to that. This does look quite nice, at least for, the pre-order photos. But it's so simple, and we've seen Freeing actually lower their prices, so I feel like Union Creative haven't gotten the memo yet. Or they don't care, and they just want more money. That's probably what it is. Also from Union Creative is this Pink X Bunny Girl from DS Smile Illustration for 19,200 yen. Pretty good price. Now, she doesn't have a scale, but she is listed at 200 millimeters in height, which seems pretty good considering she's in the, the Wadiza pose, like basically a W, kind of informal. I think that's the term. Anyway, Poker Bunny. Fun design. Outrageous colors. Her hair is so green, and then it contrasts super harshly with the pink, but also I kind of like it at the same time. I think her face is super cute, really comes down to like the eye design, and also she's very cheeky. Her butt is very nicely sculpted. What more do I gotta say? You're seeing it, you're probably agreeing with me, but yeah, I think it just comes down to if you like the colors of this figure, because the design is good. At least to me. I like DS Smile's illustration here. I think they did a great job with her. I'm sure the original illustration looks even prettier, but that's just kind of how it works, especially with Union Creative. So, you know, you take what you can get, and I think they did a pretty good job here, all things considered. Another Teleru figure, this time Mikan in the nurse cosplay, pretty much the exact same as the Lala and Momo versions from Union Creative, maybe a little cheaper, but I don't remember that. 19,200 yen, not too bad. It looks exactly the same, has the stool, has the panty line thing, there you go. Hey, how about this? From Q6, we got Dragon Maid's Lukoa in a bikini, a 1/7 scale, for just about 21,000 yen. Honestly, I thought this would cost a bit more, so I think this price is pretty good, considering how massive she is. Now, she has 2 faceplates. That's great, but also there's a second version of this figure where she's tanned, and they went kinda hard on the oil. Also, the bikini is now silver this time, though I gotta say I like the purple bikini a little bit more. Yeah, I like how they didn't even bother with the base on this one, not even pretending like people give a shit about that, because they know. They know exactly why people want to buy this one. Plus, I guess it keeps the cost down, because you don't have to design a sandy base and whatnot. So yeah, I'm pretty sure at least one person in my comment section has mentioned this to me a couple of times, so now's your chance, buddy. Pick up your fig. Here's a figure I might pick up. From Persona 3 Reload is Elizabeth, a 1/8 scale for 16,360 yen. Great price if you ask me. Very cool setup too. She's holding the Persona Compendium, I think that's what that is, and a bunch of tarot cards are circling her. Nice little dynamism here. They didn't go too hard just to keep things, I don't know, under control, I guess, not out of hand, but I do dig it. I think it still looks cool. I like the design of the base. I think Elizabeth also looks very pretty. I mean, who doesn't like Elizabeth? She's great. Can't wait to play Reload, though I'm gonna wait for a price drop because I'm not spending $70 on that game. Just won't do it, but I'm sure it's gonna be great. Mei Hatsume from My Hero Academia, 16,630 yen, 1/8 scale, the exact pose you would probably expect her to get, which I don't know if that says a lot about the character, but this was kind of how she was introduced, so I understand. Since I stopped watching this show though, how relevant is this character? Because I wouldn't have expected her to get a figure, but hey, maybe she's a fan favorite, or maybe she's doing stuff in the newer seasons. I don't know. Fill me in if you do. Rain Code Shinigami for 21,250 yen. Again, a little expensive for the company, but I do feel like this one's pretty well justified. There's a lot of plastic here. Her twin tails are massive and braided, and her dress, especially the ribbon, has a lot of like jewels placed on them, or little diamonds, stuff like that. She's floating in the air, which does kind of lend to the idea that she's not from this world, of course. She looks very cute. I like the art style of this figure. I think I failed to mention if any of the other figures from Kotobukiya had a bonus faceplate. So this is me reminding myself to do that, just show them off really quickly and show what Shinigami is going to get as a bonus if you pre-order her through the Koto store. Probably a wink or something if I had to guess. And last up for Kotobukiya, I think, is the Guilty Gear Strive Bridget with Return of the Killing Machine, 1/7 scale for 32,340 yen. Had to do a double take the first time I saw that price tag. Now, at the very least, you can split this figure down the middle and pay about half the price, and I was gonna show you that, but when I looked up Bridget on AmiAmi, the other version of this figure just isn't here. So fuck me, I guess. But just take my word for it. You can get her for like 18,000, 19,000, something like that, if you don't want Roger. But I feel like the whole idea of this figure kind of hinges on that, right? Because that's the whole point. She's doing the super. She's summoning Roger. He's on the bike. He's surrounded by the flame wheel. It's awesome. I just wasn't expecting this price tag at all. But maybe I'm being a little unfair because the flames look really well done, and you know, Roger's a pretty big bear plushie. He has an entire motorcycle that he's riding. Little like action text up there saying go. At least they're doing something creative with Bridget. They're actually incorporating like elements of the game and actually showing off her abilities and her moves, which is very cool. But for me, I think the only way I would consider getting this version of her is if there was only like 3 other Bridgets on the market and this was the best one, or maybe like the second best one. But there really are too many Bridgets at this point. And I think Kotobukiya took a little too long to get this one on the market. But we'll see how it turns out. Might be the best one, who knows? Kotobukiya is a good company, but usually they don't price their figures this high. Ooh, okay, we gotta talk about this one. Gunbuster's Noriko, celebrating the 35th anniversary of Gunbuster, which is great. Finally, we get some figures for one of the best shows out there, a true classic. Everybody should check it out if they haven't. Here we have a figure of her made by Bandai Namco Filmworks. I don't think they've made anything before. I know it's being distributed by Union Creative though, which doesn't give me hope. However, this is like the last thing I would ever ask for when it comes to Gunbuster. I actually don't think it looks bad. And the truth about this figure is that it's based off of very old artwork, official artwork. So that does validate this sculpt for me. Even though I don't love it, it makes sense. I understand where they're pulling from. But is this really how you're remembering Gunbuster? With Noriko just getting herself wet with the water fountain. It's just like the last thing I ever would have thought of if I were tasked with making a figure of Noriko. Personally, might be boring, might be expected, but I would just want the Gainax pose where she's crossing the arms. It's been referenced in so many shows at this point that you think that's what the companies would want to do, but I guess that's just not the case. Yeah, so she's gonna cost you 25,000 yen. Is that outrageous? Not really, cause of the fountain. What does the base look like? It looks very basic. And it's not like there's much of a design to the water fountain. The water squirt looks kind of good. The water that landed on her body also does look pretty realistic, so they did a good job there as well. And I like her eyes. You know what? They've done a good job. Slightly maybe modernizing the look, but also keeping it very stylized, like the original 80s art style. It definitely calls back to that, but it doesn't look exactly like it to me, but I do like it. It's a nice looking figure, just not something I really enjoy because I wanted something else, but who cares what I think, right? I'm interested to see how this one turns out because Bandai Namco Filmworks is the one making it, and I don't think they've done anything else. Never mind, I'm wrong. They've made this figure of Burn the Witch. What's her name? Nini? Did this one turn out good? I don't know. Anyway, there you go. Noriko. Alright, we're almost done. I'm pretty much ready to wrap this up. Just a few more figures to go. From El Coco, here are some more budget figures at the 1/7 scale of Megumin as well as Aqua. In these like slightly sexy sweater dresses, I guess. I think Megumin looks a little bit better, mostly because of her face. I think Aqua looks a little off if you ask me. But I kind of wish I picked up El Coco's free rent, because that sold out. I wasn't expecting that to happen. And I'm very curious of the quality at the 1/7 scale, right? Because they're so cheap. And I'm just wondering if this is worth getting into. Certainly would be a good idea for me to talk about that in like an unboxing or something. But yeah, I guess if I can find that when it comes out, I'll pick it up and make a video of it. But for now, we have these 2 new figures from them. And I hope they turn out good because this price literally just cannot be beat for this size. From Astrum Design, we have Ivy, a 1/7 scale for 17,300 yen. I think this is the 4th girl in the series. Might be the last, actually. So it's like a sweater leotard with some sneakers, and she's got a face mask, right? You can take it off. They display her with plenty of photos to see her face, but just like the other girls, I feel like they are designed with the face mask in mind. I think she looks a little bit cooler as a result. Very muted in terms of like the colors, pretty much just gray, and then like a darker gray or maybe black, but like that's kind of it. The sneakers have a little bit of purple. But yeah, don't expect too much vibrancy with these figures. I think her eyes are also like I think that's blue. I was gonna say purple, but I'm pretty sure they're blue. I think she's very pretty. I like this one. I like the other girls in this line. This would probably be my second favorite of the 4 if I had to choose. Though I don't know if any of you guys remember what the other girls look like. So maybe I'll put an image of them on screen right now. But now we move on. Yeah, so there's no subtle way to put this one. Mihiro, Bunny Girl, 1/4 scale from Magi Arts. Very good price, 27,000 yen. She's just spreading her ass. I mean, that's it. I don't know. Magi Arts is a company I don't, unfortunately, know much about. Not a cast-off figure, so what you see is what you get. Hopefully it turns out good. Out of curiosity, I'm just gonna click their name down here and see what they've done. And apparently it's not much, though they did make this Dark Magician girl, which I know a lot of people like. I actually watched DTTC Derek unbox this one like a week ago, so check out that video if you want to find out more about this figure, because this could not be a worse photo if they tried. But yeah, that does make me feel a little bit more comfortable about this Mihiro girl and the lower price tag despite being a 1/4 scale. Fate's Grand Order, Dream Portrait Version, 1/7 scale, 23,800 yen from Claynell. This is just super adorable. Not much else needs to be said, honestly. Very snug, very cozy looking. I love the colors of the sweater. And the scarf, which actually have like paw pads, which is also very cute. There's a lot of pins on them, and I'm sure those are like references to Fate Grand Order, but I don't know them. Unfortunately, as much as I like the figures from Fate, I don't play the game. But for those who are knowledgeable on this series, I'm sure this is very cool. Even not knowing what this is, I think it's cool. But yeah, this one's kind of like infectiously cute. I dig it a lot. It's adorable for sure. You gotta have at least one Uma Musume figure in these videos. So here we have Duramente from Cygames for 26,000 yen. Pretty expensive. Most of these horse girls are, for whatever reason. She looks like a badass. I'm not very familiar with her. But yeah, pretty serious in tone. I really like the gradation in her hair. But what I don't like about this figure, the feathers are cool too on the shoulder pads, is the base. The base looks absolutely terrible. In fact, that looks photoshopped. That doesn't even look real. I pray that's not what the base actually looks like, because the rest of the figure looks very good, but that would actually kill the design for me if they went with that. Alright fellas, I know a lot of you guys like this figure, so saving it for the end, here we have Azur Lane Prinz from Apex, 1/7 scale, 23,000 yen. I believe this is the 3rd race queen from them, and Baltimore really set it off by really exceeding expectations. 1, just because the figure looked fantastic when it came out, but 2, it ended up being a cast-off, which means everybody wanted it, and it's very likely that Prinz will also be a cast-off, just like the other figures in this line. I know she has a second faceplate, not sure where it is. It's a wink. Doesn't necessarily imply, like, nudity, like the other 2 faceplates did for the other 2 characters I'm thinking of, but it seems like a safe bet if you were to ask me. Even if it's not, though, I still think the outfit is attractive enough. Got the under boob, a little bit of the side boob too. Sorry, I kind of screwed the photo there. Very short skirt, showing the thong, lots of like tummy on this figure, humongous flag billowing behind her. Like, this price is way too good for a figure that looks like this. But yeah, just like a really nice glossy paint job for the clothing, very supple looking skin, very beautiful looking face, hair's flowing in the breeze. If I collected Azur Lane, I'd pick this up. Kind of tempted to anyway. I'm sure anybody who does will be in for one hell of a figure based on Baltimore. So I think it's pretty safe to say that you could pre-order this one without worry. Okay, 2 more to go, both from Blue Archive. First up is Amy, 1/7 scale, from Mimeyoi. There was something about this that I remember reading, and it caught me off guard, and I think it was this down here. Please be advised that the product may shrink as a result of the manufacturing process. Now, that's not ever listed under anything, so I don't know what they mean by that. Like, is the figure going to be smaller than they're expecting? Or are, like, parts of the figure going to be smaller than expected. I don't know. It's very strange that they would point that out, but hopefully there's not a big issue with this figure when she releases. She is very cheap, which is great to see. And if you know this character design, her clothes are kind of like not really being worn. I don't remember the justification as to why that is, but most of them are kind of like down to her shoulders or like her elbows. And she's got a massive chest. This gallery loves to show that off, and I'm sure you love to see it. Especially this one image right here. Hoo-ha, that's crazy. But you know, Mimayoi has a pretty good track record right now. I don't think it's perfect, but they've done a pretty good job with most of their releases. This looks really good for a base. It's very simple, but I love this clear red, and like, I'm never the biggest fan of like names on bases, especially with like the title of the series, but it looks very classy. I love this base a lot, actually. It's very compact too. Is it just me though, or do her shoes look kind of strange and blocky? Like they almost look 3D printed. I'm sure they're not. They just look like that. But maybe I'm just crazy because I've been recording for like 5 hours and that's not a joke, but it's been on and off. Don't worry about me. Colors are fantastic. I think she has a wonderful color palette. The paint looks great, and the clothes halfway on her, the jacket looking a little oversized if you ask me, and the bandages. It's very charming, just like as a character design in general. So I dig this one. I hope it turns out well. Probably not something I'll get, but I like it. And then last up, from Blue Archive, from Elegance, is this Azusa swimsuit figure for 30,000 yen. Now, we did see some swimsuit figures approach this price point. However, they didn't come with nearly this much detail, considering she has like 5 suitcases, or 4 or 5, something like that. You got a little bag down here with a bunch of little trinkets and drinks. Her hair is pretty massive. Her wings, while not the biggest, do have some little ribbons attached to them, and the details of each feather are present. And that's not even mentioning the flowers and ribbons in her hair. Her swimsuit has some flourishes to it. There's like stickers all over the suitcase. The beach doesn't look great. This sand kind of looks like applesauce. But I can forgive it because they're doing a lot everywhere else, right? And as you can see, she has a second faceplate where she's looking a little bit more annoyed. Can't say I like it as much as the initial faceplate. She looks much cuter here, if you ask me. I just think the eye decals are great, but overall, a standout as far as swimsuit figures go. I think the values there just really comes down to the paint job. I want to see how this one turns out. But again, not really something I plan to pick up, but that's okay. You can't buy everything. However, that's gonna do it for our final pre-order roundup of 2023. There'll be another one at the end of January, into February, of course, but that's gonna do it today. Let me know what you guys thought about this video in the comments below, and if you want to support the channel, subscribe and like, all that jazz. You know how it goes. I appreciate you regardless of what you do. Thanks for tuning in. That's all you really gotta do. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.